Welcome to the Humans Over Numbers podcast, the show that's willing to stand on its head to see the workplace from a new perspective.
The show is brought to you by Milestones, makers of Beyond This Day, Small Wonders, and other keepsake gifts for employees, recognizing major life events. So request your sample today at milestonescompany.com and see the impact they make for yourself.
I'm Felix Dusable, a hungry bookworm and aspiring polymath.
I'm Brian Gallagher, husband of one, father of four, and lifelong Survivor fan.
All right, so we're here to talk about AI in the workplace. So we're going to look at what it is now. Hopefully we're going to look at it, how it's going to affect and impact the future of the workplace and some of those changes that might be happening. So this is completely like a speculation, opinion piece type thing. Let's talk about AI in the past, actually. Let's talk about the history of it. I know you know some stuff about that. You've written articles on that.
Yeah, sure. So, I got fascinated with AI from the beginning because I did a master's in data analytics course or program through Villanova, and I started to understand the power that data analytics has. And as soon as you start doing that, you start saying, okay, well, how has this progressed over, the eons, if you will? And what I love, the thing that I love to kind of encapsulate the progress that we've made is chess. Chess is an awesome game, right? It's like what the geniuses do. And there's an article of mine on LinkedIn that I can call upon. It's called The History of Chess. But in 1972, it was Garry Kasparov against Bobby Fischer. That was the chess match forever, right? It was in Reykjavik, Iceland, and you had the two greatest minds of chess going at each other. And Bobby Fischer won. It was like this great thing. It was almost like the miracle on ice. The Americans take down the Russians. Fast forward 20 years or so, 1997, DeepBlue, a machine built by IBM, beats Garry Kasparov. And that was just like this, you talk about the point of singularity. It wasn't quite that, I don't think, but it was starting to sniff it, So it was an amazing accomplishment for those IBM engineers. They had built a machine that could beat a human. Fast forward another 20 years. Now you have, instead of, it started with two people going against each other. Then it was man against machine. Now you have machine against machine. You had Stockfish, that was the best, most amazing chess program that had ever been built. Okay, it had thousands upon thousands of years worth of game simulations coded into it. It got beat by an AI, AlphaZero, built by Google, Google's DeepMind. And the thing that was amazing about it was Stockfish was brute force, right? It had nothing but loads and loads of data, and then it would think about every single possible move it could do and would just test it. So it was purely just like how much can I process, right? And to find the right move. Mm-hmm. Google's AlphaZero didn't have that approach at all. What's fascinating about that match that happened, they played 100 games, they drew, it was a draw for 72 of them, and AlphaZero won 28 of them, right? Mm-hmm. So AlphaZero never lost. Here's the thing about AlphaZero. It learned how to play chess 4 hours before the match. It didn't have any of the rules. It was uploaded with the rules and a little bit of sample data 4 hours before the match. And it crushed Stockfish that had been developed over decades and decades and decades. And so the reason I bring this up is to show the exponential progress of technology, especially in the world of AI. It's startling to say the least.
Yeah, I love the examples of Kasparov and DeepBlue. That's one of the most famous ones. And then just humans versus AI in game is just something that's hilarious or not hilarious, it's also kind of terrifying to many people. And it's covered by so much stuff. I love first with that one, and then they did Watson in Jeopardy. It just crushed the guy. And I remember thinking, I was like, whatever. That's fine. It doesn't that's not a big deal. It just searches the internet, and then I found it's not actually. There was no internet, and I was like, oh.
Here's the big crazy deal. I went to 2 years ago. I went to the Artificial Intelligence Summit in Manhattan, and there was all Watson was there, and all the big players were there. Microsoft, everything like that. And I'm walking through the conference hall, and I see a screen of myself. Okay, and it's my picture. It's almost like when you walk into a Target and you like wave to yourself on the surveillance camera, you know.
Mm-hmm.
But a box populated over my face, and it said, "Male, 32, happy," happy. I think it was like my gender, my age, and my emotions. And so I was happy because at the time I was 30. I was like, got me wrong. How could it know my age? And then it corrected itself while I was standing there and stayed on it. And I was like, what? Like, I go and talk to the person behind. I was like, how does it know my age? Does it have, I'm thinking, did I upload my driver's license and it's doing a facial recognition on my registration for this conference? I didn't know what it was. But they said, no, it's just been looking at faces for a long time and can tell your age. And it's amazing. AI is going to be so much more powerful than we, it already is, right? It can detect shades of gray on, an X-ray that the human eye can't possibly detect. So when you're looking at an X-ray or an MRI, do you want an experienced doctor with years and years and years of experience, just like Stockfish had years and years of experience, assessing your scan, or do you want an AI that actually could see things that your own human eyes can't? It's an interesting thing, and I think that it's the same conversation as a self-driving vehicle. It's a comfort level that we have. Will a self-driving vehicle be safer to ride? I think so, but it's going to take a while for people to start trusting it, right? But humanity seems to adapt pretty quickly, so I think the future is closer than we think.
Yeah, well, so that you were talking about earlier, there's that exponential growth curve that's called Moore's law, and Moore's law is originally in reference to transistors. So it's literally about like transistors on a CPU and stuff.
Yep.
And it's just they're going to double every year, and if you double every year, 2, 4, 8, 6, not 8, it goes like 64. It just that spike is so rapid and so. We are seeing the effects of AI showing up. First, we're like, oh, look at that, it's in game shows. Yep. But 5 years ago, it wasn't as prevalent as it is now. You don't realize it's in our cell phones. It is. We use it for everything. Like, there's so many AIs. Google is an AI to test. Like, when you type in something and those automatic results pop up, those aren't the most searched. Those are ones that's tailored to you.
Yeah.
Using an AI. It predicts what you like using AI, and that's just one thing.
So what does that mean, though? Like, what does that mean for us? It means the world's a gigantic echo chamber. I mean, we are. This morning I went and voted, right? And the election at the time that we film this is Tuesday, so it's like 3 days away. And I think everybody can admit in the year 2020, the craziest year in human history probably, we are in a gigantic echo chamber. I mean, everything from what we see, from political ads to whatever it might be. The thing is, it's a feedback loop, right? You put your data into these things, your cell phone. It's not even a cell phone. I think it's funny that it's called a cell phone because we're so imprisoned by it. It's a cell phone. But we put the data in, and then it crunches it on the other side and puts it back to us, and then it's just this constant, and it's this feedback loop. And I think that we're and hey, admittedly so, I'm caught in it. And I have to ask myself the question: is my thought free? Is my thought original? Or am I just influenced by the, amazing, influences that know me better than anything? Am I just influenced by Google to think a certain way? I don't know. I don't want to border on conspiracy theory or anything, but, if knowledge is power, let's take it this way. We've seen knowledge is power, right? I mean, that's the old adage. And data leads to knowledge, right? And it takes cognition, if you will, or maybe intelligence, maybe there's that word, to convert data into knowledge, or to convert data into information. Well, Google has all the data, all of it, everything. If you're an iPhone user, well, you still use Google Chrome, so they still know like what you search for, right? And and it can turn that stuff into information about you. Okay, are they the most powerful institution ever on Earth? I mean, if knowledge is power, you got to ask these questions. I think they're fascinating. It's scary though. I mean, how many times have we been talking about something? It would be chocolate covered cranberries or something absolutely weird, and then you get an ad for it on your phone, and you're like, you were listening to me, and it's weird. It's very, very weird.
I had a friend who liked to talk about like that type of example where you talk about something and then you see the results, and there's actually two different things that are happening, one or the other or both simultaneously. One, Google does listen. Google listens to me definitely all the time. My phone's powered by Google, and I actually use their phone service. So they listen to everything. I got one in my home that listens to me.
Yep.
But the other thing is their predictive AI is so good. The person's like, or that brought this up, he said, is it that they're listening to you, or are they so good at predicting what you like that you actually catch on to your next thing before you do?
And I think that the latter is scarier.
It's so much more scary. Like one's like, oh no, home invasion privacy, but the other one's like, it's like getting into your own thoughts before you can get there.
Yeah, about the Moore's Law that you brought up earlier. I teach a class on this at Belmont Abbey College, and one of my lectures starts with, and I kind of stole it from a TED Talk, I forget which one, but it talks about the progression of how people worked, right? So it took thousands of years for the hunter-gatherer to become a farmer, right? And agriculture. As soon as they started planting crops and everything, they had civilizations, and that changed all of human history. Then it took hundreds of years to go from that planter, that farmer, to the machinist of the Industrial Revolution, right? And then it took maybe I should back that up. I'm getting my time periods mixed up. Maybe it took 1,000 years to become the machinist. It took 100 years from the point of the Industrial Revolution to the digital revolution of the personalized computer in the 80s. It changed everything. We're talking to a computer right now, and our audience is listening through a computer. So that changed everything about it. And then we're on the cusp. It's only taken tens of years. So we went from thousands to hundreds to tens of years for the next revolution, the augmented revolution of artificial intelligence. And what's scary about this is, that kind of exponential curve that goes up like that. The Native American chief had no concept of what a machine was, right? He couldn't envision the cotton gin. You know what I'm saying? Eli Whitney couldn't envision the personal computer. You're almost blind to the next generation of things because it's just so outside of it's so revolutionary. It's crazy. And so the point of me saying that is we have no idea what's coming next. It probably has something to do with quantum computers, but all we know is that it's going to come faster and it's going to be a revolution. And in fact, I posit to my students in my class that we, born in this generation, will be the only people ever on Earth to experience 2 or possibly 3 major revolutions of technology. Because the others, it was so spaced out. And now that we're getting that peak curve of exponential progress, we're going to be like boom, and then next thing we're going to blink, and it's going to be boom, and then it's going to, because each revolution unlocks the next one, right? And quicker because of how powerful they are. So that to me is an interesting point. I'm thinking about the world that my kids are going to grow up in. And my daughter, Evelyn, she's yelling at us, but she's already yelling at Alexa, to play Moana soundtrack. What is her life going to be like? It's crazy. And to think about it, and here's the thing, I have no concept. It's impossible for me to know what comes next because we're just getting started with AI, but what AI unlocks is going to be even that much more mind-blowing.
So one thing that, and this will tie actually into how it might work with businesses, there's this idea of sort of, I think, light switch technologies, and they're technologies that are so ingrained in your time that you don't actually think about the time before those existed.
Yeah.
The light switch is one of those. Yeah. We think of it. We don't really think of light switches even as technology. That's actually what the idea is.
Yeah.
That once if it's invented before you were born and widely used, you don't consider it technology. You only consider what's new technology. So light switches, actually, when they first were invented, people were trying to light the light bulbs on fire to like turn them on. And like it was causing places to get burned down.
It's like my
and
dad trying to turn on his computer. It's
and
like
that's
this.
exactly right. To him, it's new technology. So it's like we get that struggle with the new stuff, but the old stuff we don't even consider. Right now, we've hit some revolutions, including one of them I would argue is going to be the revolution of like augmented reality. And one of the recent revolutions is social media.
Oh, yeah.
I think social media was a huge revolution in technology that just changed the landscape of thinking and.
That's the echo chamber, for sure.
Yeah, and that one really works as an echo chamber. So there's technologies we don't even think of as technology anymore. Like, augmented reality might be the next one. I don't know. It was funny. I was actually shopping for, like, a phone on Google, and Google let me augmented reality plop it on my table and look at it using my phone.
Yeah.
But, like, what will be those technologies that are ingrained in us, and how does that affect, well, specifically AI, how does that affect people who are not aware of AI yet? They're like, it's there, and they're like trying to learn it to the old, and then how will the future generations look at it when they're looking back at the AI? And because it's just part of how this works.
Yeah, it's crazy, and you lose something in that, you know. And what the example of the light switch is great. Andrew Ng, one of the foremost voices in the AI world, I think he's a doctor at Stanford, but he said that AI is the new electricity. It's going to be everywhere, ingrained in every aspect of our life, and we're going to not even recognize it because it's always just going to be there, right? So, the question, let's talk about some of the downfalls real quick, because I think you have to, okay? Let's take social media, for example. I actually believe that we're less social than we used to be as a human race, at least as a country. I think that we've lost the ability to communicate, even though we are communicating all the time, or if you call it communication. For instance, people can't disagree on anything anymore. They can't have a discussion, And what's funny about the word discussion, I learned this from my uncle, discussion has the same root word, same derivative word as percussion. So there's a beat, there's a friction to discussion, but it continues to go. So I don't think people can have discussions anymore. They just start yelling at each other. So anyway, where was I going with that? This technology unlocks this means of communication, and then it's like, oh, well, we don't have to do the hard work anymore. And so we become bad at communicating. Yeah. Similarly to AI, I worry about my daughter who can find out anything, including the birds and the bees, I'm sure, from Alexa. Just, you know what I'm saying? So why does she have to go to school? Why does she have to memorize the year the Spanish Armada happened? When she can just, ask Google and boom, you got it. So what happens to literally the formation of her brain as she's growing up and learning things in this new landscape where you can learn anything you want in a moment's notice? I mean, remember the days when there was that song playing at a bar or a party, and it's like, what was the name of that song? And it would bug you. Or what was the name of that actor in that one movie? Now you can just know it, so you don't have that frustration. So what does this do to the human race, to humanity, to how we interact as people, to how my children grow up in this world when you have all of this at your fingertips? I don't necessarily think it's... Now, it's a tool, right? So it can be used for good or used for bad, right? But when I study this stuff, am less concerned with what it's going to do to the world, which I think a lot of people focus on. I think more about what it's going to do to us as individuals. How will humanity change in light of AI? Not necessarily how will AI change. I know AI is going to change, and I can't even imagine the changes that it's going to do. All I can think of how it's going to affect my kids and myself going forward. So I think that's an interesting point of... You tell me, how do you think that AI will affect our kids? You just had your first child, what was it, 6 months ago?
Right, yes. So what I actually think, I actually used to work in a school, and one of the things that we were all noticing, and that it's across the country everyone's realizing, is soft skills are gone. Yeah. And one of them, we think, is probably because of what you said, that echo chamber. The AIs in social medias know what you want to see. And so they're putting those on your feeds.
Yep.
So you're only seeing your own opinions. You're only seeing those things, and you're only interacting with people through texts and Snapchats and Instagrams and TikToks and all those things. And so these are your type of interactions. You don't know how to interact with people face to face, and you don't know how to face challenges anymore because you can Google them. Those skills like grit, learning how to do research,
Yep.
how to create complete thoughts, how to do things and stick with a task.
Yep.
Social activities like relationship building, conversations between another person, small talk, those things are gone. They're out the window. And the more we see AI technology getting implemented, the more those things will start disappearing. And so the place of it, institutions like schools now, is to try putting in more soft skills. And so how the workplace might be really affected this is they need to start looking for people with soft skills and learning how to train people with soft skills because those things are disappearing.
Absolutely.
And that's also as AI gets better at like running various pieces of technology, it gets better at running the factory line. It gets better at creating stuff. Like they're even making AIs that can read a whole bunch of scripts and create scripts. They're really terrible right now, but they're getting better.
Oh, they will.
And that's how AI works. It gets better. There's an AI program that learned how to walk on its own. They told it go from here to here and gave it legs, and it learned to walk.
Yeah.
And so the AI is going to grow. But we have to figure out our place in the workscape that's growing. And so our place might be the human touch.
Absolutely.
Our place is going to be the conversations, those soft skills. And so we really need to focus on how to promote that in the moving forward.
I completely agree. And, just a note on conversation. I think people miss conversation.
Oh, definitely.
And that's why podcasts are going crazy. Podcasts are so popular now because it's refreshing to hear someone talk. I'm a big fan of Joe Rogan, and he just has conversations with people. He's not sitting there beating you over the head with, political stances, right? He's just having a conversation with a paleontologist or an astronomer or a comedian or an MMA fighter. It doesn't matter. He's just having a good conversation. So that's a soft skill that he knows and has made tons of money on. But as we look at the workplace, you're right. All the technical skills that people know, I'm not going to say they're completely worthless now, right? But the value of the employee will be more weighted toward who they are as a person in that culture. With Humans Over Numbers, the podcast and the Milestones company that we work at, we are focused on the purpose of the individual within that workplace, having that connection to the purpose, having that meaning, having that engagement. And that's actually something that I think AI will open up, maybe unintendedly. If all of your skills in your brain and all your knowledge and everything can be eventually taken care of by an AI machine, then what's left for you to bring to your place of work? Yourself, your own unique personal identity, your own personality, your intrinsic goodness as a human. I think that is something that will never be replicated by AI. AI at the end of the day is a machine. It's not alive. We like to think of it as it's alive. It looks alive, but it's not. And so there's something innately good about that. And so I guess what I'm saying is that as we are recruiting for the jobs of tomorrow, as we are employing people still, when you have AI taking care of so much of the work, we have to be very cognizant or I guess look at the person and who they are, their character, their type of culture fit, everything in between, their personhood, if you will, when doing that, because the technical skills, you can find, other places. Right. I mean, sure, there's some genius coder out there that's still made, there's a heart surgeon that has the steadiest of hands. Sure, there's these experts, but by and large, we have a lot of people out there that, whether it's pushing papers or pencils or doing paperwork or accounting or whatever, even shipping boxes, just go look at Amazon. A lot of those task-based jobs can be replaced, so I guess, but what cannot be replaced is that person's individuality and what that brings to the corporate culture.
Yeah.
I hope that makes sense. I kind of just riffed on it, but that's what I'm thinking, at least when I think of the workplace of tomorrow.
Yeah, well, I think that perfectly summarizes it. And so, with our approach, we need to be careful not to be Luddites, people who went out and destroyed machines because machines were there.
Yeah.
We need to be ready to embrace it, but in embracing it, we also need to be aware of its fallbacks.
Yep.
And the fallbacks are actually going to be our strengths. And that's exactly what you said, that human element. And so that's what comes to the workplace. That's what we're bringing there. That's what we need to design jobs in the future to be around the person.
Yes.
Right? Customer service.
Absolutely.
They have like chatbots, and you can tell it's a chatbot. Customer service to happen properly needs to be a person.
Yes.
So these jobs are going to be the people jobs. So when we're designing jobs moving in the future, when we're designing and hiring all these different elements, we have to be aware of the limitations of what AI is and our excellences in there.
Absolutely. And, I know we got to wrap up here in a minute, but the thing that I'm most worried about AI, and a thing that I constantly challenge myself on, is I'm not worried about the robots coming and killing everybody Terminator style, right?
No, not really.
I'm worried about us becoming robots.
Mm-hmm.
What's so great about us is our humanity, right? But if we don't use our free will, our freedom to think and challenge what's being fed to us from Facebook or Twitter or even our own family and friends, we have to embrace that. We have to utilize that, or we'll just become programmed. We have to always be mindful and challenging, and we have to try to moderate our use of tech. We don't always want to be plugged in. You kind of become assimilated to this machine that you're using every single day. So I think as we look at AI and its impact on us, the workplace, or just society as a whole, I think it's super important that we make sure to very intentionally try to retain our humanity through this revolution, so that we can bring that humanity to our work or to our life. We don't want to be robotic. We're becoming more and more predictable. That's why they know what I want to buy when I want to buy it, because we've been predicted by the machines. So I guess what I'm saying is that I'm more worried about people becoming robots than robots replacing humans. And so we should relish in our humanity and what makes us human, our freedom of thought, expression, things like that. We should champion it for ourselves and for others, because when so much is taken care of for you by these bots and Amazon and Google, you don't have to really do much heavy lifting. And just like a muscle, it's going to atrophy if you're not careful. You gotta put yourself into this life. You can't just let the robots live it for you. I guess that's what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, well, I think that wraps up the discussion really well. We have our takeaways and understanding what we need to be looking forward and looking out for. So
yeah, I appreciate you having me on. I want to do this more often if you have me. This is a lot of fun.
Yeah, this is great. All right, so thank you for listening. Like, comment, subscribe. Wherever you're listening at. So until next time. Thank you for listening to the Humans Over Numbers podcast, brought to you by Milestones. If you found it informative or entertaining, please like, subscribe, or leave a comment or review. I'm your host, Felix, and until next time.